Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Enrique Levine, co-founder and VP of Product at Zintro. Zintro is a global platform that makes it easy for companies to start a conversation with highly specialized experts, consultants, contractors, and job candidates about potential phone consults, projects, or employment opportunities. Specialization spans all industry sectors, disciplines, job functions, and geographies. Today's webinar, Considerations for Emerging Biopharmaceutical Companies, will be presented by Camille DeSantis and Maria Casini. Camille DeSantis is the co-founder, managing partner, chief strategy and research of Guard Dog Brand Development, a company that creates, elevates, and protects the value of healthcare brands. An award-winning veteran of the healthcare industry, Camille is considered a thought leader on healthcare and pharmaceutical brand strategy and customer experience. She is the creator of numerous proprietary brand identity development processes and proprietary research methodologies that are proven to elevate the value of brands. Camille is one of PharmaVoice's 100 most inspiring people in the life sciences industry. Maria Casini is a 30-year veteran of the healthcare industry and is recognized for her expertise in strategic design. She has applied her proven brand-building expertise and visual influence over hundreds of well-known corporate, consumer, and healthcare professional brands in the U.S. and abroad. Maria is a creative problem solver that translates strategy visually into meaningful and memorable experiences of value. Maria has been honored with many domestic and international design awards. They have been featured in NGP Pharma, Future Pharma, Spectrum, PharmaVoice, Medical Marketing and Media, and many other publications. If you would like to ask Camille and Maria any specific questions throughout the webinar, feel free to use the question section of your GoToWebinar control panel. If it's not open, you should see an orange arrow on the top right corner of your screen. You can click that and you will see the question section. Feel free to ask anything throughout the webinar. They will be answering as many questions as possible as soon as we finish the presentation, so stay tuned. We will also be providing their Zintro ID and their expert profile for follow-ups, so stay tuned. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to representatives Camille DeSantis and Maria Casini.
Thank you, Enrique. This is Camille DeSantis of Guard Dog Brand Development, and I am joined today by Maria Casini, my business partner in Guard Dog and co-founder and chief of strategy and design. Maria?
Hello. So nice to be speaking with you today.
So today we are going to be speaking about considerations for emerging biopharmaceutical companies and understand how developing a strong corporate brand identity can help you drive new product recommendations, growth, and valuation. And today you're going to hear a number of examples from the oncology sector. As you know, if you're in biopharmaceuticals, oncology is one of the more challenging sectors, and so our examples today are geared to oncology. However, they are all applicable, and the principles we'll be speaking about today are all relevant across therapeutic categories. So let's start by telling you a little story about Company A. Company A, and these are real examples, Company A was a life science company that did not have any marketed products yet, but they did have a very distinctive platform. They had products in development, a very robust pipeline. They were led by a number of thought leaders in the oncology space, and they had a phase 3 product, a chaperone inhibitor, and they were about to launch their corporate identity at ASCO for the very first time with their phase 3 drug. And 2 days before ASCO, unfortunately, they had to shut the trial down. Now, for those of you in biopharmaceuticals, you know that clinical disappointments happen all the time, but to have that happen so close to ASCO was actually quite challenging. So what happened to this company when that product had to be shut down? Well, fortunately for them, they had invested heavily in identifying their unique differences in the market, more about their scientific platform, about their people, about the intellectual property and products in development in phase 1 and phase 2 that they had. And so they were able to recover from this clinical disappointment very quickly and without skipping a beat, moved on to accelerating one of their phase 2 drugs right back into phase 3. So they, even though they had the disappointment, they were able to restore their image very quickly without an impact on the street. Now let's look at a different example of Company B.
So when we look at Company B took 7 years to develop a really anticipated oncology drug. They had other pipeline products. They had a novel scientific platform that they used to develop the products. But Company B's total focus was on one drug. In fact, Company B's leadership was so confident that this drug was superior that they chose not to follow guidelines from the FDA that requested that they have more testing. So basically everything Company B did revolved around one drug, and the name of that company, really became interchangeable with that one product. So let's see what happened next. Well, after Company B spending 7 years developing the product, federal regulators needed only about 4 hours to crush Company B's hopes. There was an increasing concern that there was a risk of death with the product. The trial design and the data were brought into question. Basically, there was a vote for 13-1 against recommending the drug. Needless to say, the shares of the company lost more than 70% of the value, and they wound up laying off 60% of the staff. The issue really was that Company B made itself stand for one thing, and that one drug in its pipeline. And when the product failed, so did Company B. So what made the difference between Company A and Company B?
Well, not too surprisingly, based on the title of this presentation, it was the corporate brand identity. So let's go to Enrique poll question number 1.
Sure. So we're going to give a little bit of time for everyone to be able to respond. I'm going to read it out loud. Corporate identity for a biopharmaceutical company is option A logo, B, a website, C, an advertising campaign, D, a public relations investor relations program, E, something else. We're going to wait a little bit to wait for responses from our audience. Thank you everyone for participating. This helps us make the webinar much more interactive. Chris, I think we can close the poll question. So basically 63% of the audience said something else, and 38% says a public relations investor relations program. Back to you.
Well, that's very interesting because we're going to dispel a few myths about corporate brand identity. Corporate brand identity is not a logo. It is not a brand book of guidelines and standards. It's not the product. It's not an ad campaign or public relations campaign. So it brings up the question, and 63% of you knew it was something else. So what exactly is that something else? Corporate brand identity is a strategy. It's a multidimensional strategic platform through which the company purposely defines who the company is, what it stands for, how it's different, and why those differences should matter to the stakeholders enough that they care in order for the company to not only successfully compete, but also create deliberately planned, differentiated, meaningful experiences of value, whether it's in oncology or otherwise, for stakeholders of all types. Put very simply, the corporate brand identity strategy is the how to the what, and the what is your business strategy. So if you're in oncology, for example, all oncology companies make oncology products. Their business strategies revolve around their scientific platforms and the products and therapeutic areas that they intend to market those products in. The how they go to market and the how they go to the street and how the company behaves and how the company speaks and appears is the corporate brand identity strategy. So what I'm saying is that corporate brand identity is taking everything the business says and does into consideration. It's the what you do and the how you do it. So it's the products you make, the actions the company takes, how the company communicates, and how the company relates. What we're talking about is a multifaceted strategy. So everything from how is the company organizing against the strategy. So when you're looking to hire employees, how are they told they need to behave to be representatives of this company? Not just salespeople, but everyone from the CEO on down needs to be an ambassador of the company. How are they organizing around this experience of value? Likewise, how is the company speaking? The tone of voice, the lexicon, a master narrative of how the company tells its unique story of differentiation. Visual identity, how does that company look? How does it feel? The colors involved, not just the logo, but the entire experience of the company visually. How are data represented? How are infographics designed so that they are unique to that company? And then experiential identity, very important. If you're a stakeholder of the company, how do you experience this company? How does it feel when you're in a meeting with them? How does it feel if you attend JP Morgan conference and you hear the CEO speak about the company? What is that feeling that you're getting, and why as a stakeholder do I want to engage with you? That's experiential identity. And there's 3 key areas of value that will result when a company actively cultivates a corporate brand identity: competitive advantage, growth stimulation, and long-term market expansion. Very important. As an emerging biopharmaceutical company, you want your company to reflect the current market dynamics. You'd like to gain early competitive advantage even if you're not marketing a product yet. You want to help accelerate your pipeline performance and become a growing industry leader voice. You want to stimulate growth, of course, and ultimately reduce the cost of your operations to more efficiently and effectively meet your partner needs, your alliance needs, your customer needs, your shareholder needs. And lastly, you're obviously going to want to expand. So acting as a demonstrable indication of the company's commitment, the corporate brand helps you demonstrate that you will fulfill the promise that you stand for in typically your vision or mission statement. So why is corporate identity so incredibly valuable?
Well, it's valuable because corporate brand identity for any biopharmaceutical company, and especially for oncology companies, drives business. And that's because it helps generate investments. I mean, when stakeholders understand who a company is, what they stand for, why they're different and why that's important, investors will respond positively. And a strong corporate ID also attracts talent. When you think about it, did the current company that you're working for now, did their reputation have any say in you choosing that company? I mean, if there were 2 positions that were equal, what would make you lean towards one company versus the other? And often that is the corporate identity. It secures a seat at the industry table. It draws clinical trial investigators and patients, and we know that the environment is really competitive right now for clinical trials. So a strong corporate identity really helps with enrollment for the investigators and for the patients. It boosts attendance at company-sponsored events. It prompts interest in company literature and in publications. And it has stakeholders really want to follow the company on social media, in the press. They want to listen to what the company is saying. And importantly, corporate ID helps to trigger trial for products. When there's trust in a company, then they'll try. And it drives recommendation behaviors, and there's a direct correlation between recommendations and company growth and profitability.
So corporate brand identity for a company is a major economic asset that supports investor confidence and creates value at the same time. Studies have shown that corporate identity alone is generating somewhere between 21 and 26% of total shareholder value. So we're going to go to poll question number 2 to see what impact this might have on a company overall. Enrique, question number 2.
Sure. Thank you. So let's read that out loud. A 5% improvement in company image produces how much uplift in annual capitalization? Please tell us what you think. The options are 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, 400 million, or over 500 million. Okay, I think we can close the poll. Show the results. So 33% thought 50 million, 22% thought 100 million, 22% said 200 million, and 11% 400 million, and 11% as well over 500 million. Back to you.
Thank you, Enrique. I think it might surprise some of you to know that for the average S&P 500 company, a mere 5% increase in the perception of the corporate image. Now, to increase your corporate image by 5% does not take a significant amount of work to do. But if you increased your corporate image by 5%, the average S&P company would see an increase in the stock price of 1.5% over the year, which comes to $550 million. So what you're seeing is, although image is 21 to 26% of the overall valuation, it adds up pretty quickly when you show improvements in corporate image, and even small improvements have a tremendous impact on value overall. So again, we're not speaking about a campaign or a tactical element. This is a very significant business driver. So Enrique, let's go to question number 3, please.
Okay, let's go for it. So the next question is true or false? When products are similar, the company with a stronger image will have greater market share. Is it true or false? Oh, thank you for responding, everyone. I think we can close the poll. And basically 100% of the votes came as true.
Excellent.
Back to you.
And it is true. And we ran an independent study in the oncology sector with oncologists around just recently. And we set up a hypothetical situation where every company on this page would be launching a very similar product in melanoma, and it would have the same mechanism of action, the same PK/PD profile, the same efficacy, safety, tolerability, dosing, administration, and pricing would be exactly the same. So under that situation, the question simply was, of all of these companies, which company's product would you recommend now that you know the product is exactly the same? And the answer was a whopping almost 55% for Genentech Roche, because in traditional studies of image, and Gardog does conduct these. In fact, we recently put the announcement out in July of our 2015 benchmarking study. Genentech Roche in the oncology sector has the highest image overall of all oncology companies. So, and this study is a validation of multiple studies done both by Gardog and by others that show that, not too surprisingly, the company with the greatest image actually sells the most products. And what's interesting is that products alone are not the only thing that drives the value of the company. So, Enrique, let's go to question number 4.
Sure, thank you. So the question is, what percentage of a pharmaceutical company's reputation is tied to its products? And the options are 100%, 80%, 60%, 40%, or 20%. I'm going to give a couple of seconds. Thank you, everyone, for responding. Okay, I think we can close the poll. Most of our attendees have responded. So 20% of the population said 100%. 50% of the population, most of the people, said 80%. 10% said 60%, and 20% said 40%. No one said 20%. Back to you.
Okay, well, this is interesting because what you're going to see, and this next study that we're going to share with you, is consistent year after year after year. And the data here are going to be in oncology, but we have run this study in other sectors, and the pattern is the same. Only 1/5, that's 20%, of a company's identity is product related. The rest is based in innovation, governance, leadership, social responsibility, marketing, sales, and communication, how clearly the company is communicating, workplace, and financial performance. So what you're seeing is that governance and leadership, which is the company being responsibly run, behaving ethically, and being open and transparent and having strong leadership, is actually more weighted than just the products. And the reason this is true is because our studies have shown year after year that there is an assumption made that if you're in business, if you're in oncology, one would hope you have a quality product that's been vetted through the FDA, and so therefore the expectation is that the product will be well studied and be considered safe and effective. It's the price of entry, it's a market qualifier, but that's not going to drive choice. Choice in a company is coming from all of these other elements, and so they are the 9 drivers of reputation, and they are weighted as you see them here. So products alone are not going to win the game. The oncology companies that are most likely to succeed, and biopharmaceutical companies in general, need to recognize that their success is not solely dependent on their products. Their success is dependent on the quality of the corporate brand. Think about Company A that we started the presentation with. Company A was a great example that their one product that was going to be launching very quickly never made it out of the gate. But their success continued, and they were able to sustain that disappointment because their corporate brand identity was so strong. And that's the takeaway, that the corporate brand creates differentiation in good times, which helps support a product launch or boost a marketed product if you have one, or attract talent, or attract clinical trial investigators and publications and press into interest in you. But it's also going to help create an insulation to weather any storms of clinical disappointment. And those of us in the biopharmaceutical world know that clinical disappointments are common. You almost plan for them. And so you need to have a mechanism in place that allows you to not only boost your differentiation, but protect yourself. And that's what the corporate brand is about.
So success in biopharmaceuticals and in oncology in particular, it does not come easily. You know, overall success for any company really relies on the people that are supporting it, and whether that's customers buying the products, policymakers and regulators giving the company a license to operate, whether it's the financial community, the media that's reporting on the company's point of view, or employees delivering on that company's strategy. Now, for them to support and to recommend the company, they need to trust the company. They have to trust that the company will deliver on its promises, that it has a good reputation, that it has a high-quality relationship with them. And it's particularly important for oncology stakeholders, which are really unique. I mean, if you look at who's here, the oncologists, the specialty pharma exec payers, oncology nurses are a really important part of the community, the KOLs, patient advocacy groups, the community plays a huge role in oncology, and then, of course, potential partners. Their expectations and the needs require that oncology companies to more actively really cultivate their corporate brand identities. So let's dive a little bit deeper into oncology because it is so difficult. So we've observed several industry-recognized reasons oncology companies actively cultivate corporate identity strategies. And the first is that competition in oncology is particularly fierce. I mean, we know this. There are so many products coming out and that are also being fast-tracked. So the marketplace is crowded and it's noisy. And there's significant competition for clinical investigators. I mean, everybody is kind of vying for the same people's attention. There's significant competition with a limited number of patients and types of patients and eligible patients for clinical trials. And there's also a need to attract partners for products for commercialization and to also acquire. It's also really important because the stakes are higher in oncology. Oncology clinical trials tend to be more complex than other therapeutic areas. Oncology is one of the lowest overall clinical success rates in therapy. So today, a phase 3 success rate in oncology hover only around 50%. So we know that that's because oncology trials are typically more complex and difficult than other areas, but overall survival is also expected to be the primary endpoint in clinical trials, and this also comes with challenges in the study design. The stakeholders are engaged and demanding. I mean, investment in oncology needs to be really demonstrative. You can't just dabble in oncology. You have to show that there's a commitment, that you don't only have one product, that you're committed to the community, that you may be building a franchise. It's really important that you're not seen as a dabbler. And also, as I just mentioned, the community plays a huge role. So activation and advocacy, are really, really high. And just delivering on a product, even if it's a great one, is not a sole proof of commitment. Regulatory and reimbursement environment, continues to evolve. There are expedited mechanisms of action. Look at the movement in the orphan drug area. There are expectations of companion diagnostics that are coupled with the new products. That's really quickly becoming the norm. And reimbursement and access programs are frequently packaged with oncology products. And it's increasingly difficult for any company, but in particular oncology companies, to get a foot in the door. I mean, a recent study showed that about 65% of U.S. oncologists have placed a moderate to severe access restriction on sales reps. And this is a lot higher than other therapeutic areas. So, if a company has one product to talk about, they can expect to see the doctor about 10 times a year. But after 6 months, that access is going to shrink. And those oncology companies with more than one product to talk about have a better chance of landing it than someone that doesn't. So corporate brand identity is going to help in all these areas because it opens hearts, it opens minds, and ultimately it opens doors.
So we're talking about emerging biopharmaceutical companies today, and why would an emerging company without a marketed product need to invest in corporate brand identity? Now, Guard Dog Brand Development, our company, works quite a lot with emerging biopharmaceutical companies that don't have marketed products yet. And we're often asked the question, well, why should we do this work now? Can't we wait until we have a product that's going to be on the market? And the answer is no, because at this point, if you do not have a marketed product, you are the product in the pre-launch period. Your company is. And so oncology companies or other biopharmaceutical companies with no marketed products need to actively cultivate a meaningful corporate brand identity to establish their core promise to the market and to their stakeholders, because those stakeholders need to trust and have faith in the company, the leadership of that company, the governance of that company, the people at that company, the scientific platform that the company is based on, and the company's ability to commercialize successfully. And if you don't have a track record in commercialization, you need to start to talk about how you intend to be successful there with proof points to give the stakeholders a faith and trust in you that their investments are going to be well placed. So if you're a early company without a marketed product, cultivating your corporate brand identity will help you answer these questions and many, many more. So for example, if I'm a PhD and I'm in MIT, what company do I go to? Do I go to a company with no revenue or products when I can go to work for Big Pharma? Why would I choose your company if you don't have a product? There's going to be something else there of value that needs to attract me. So also, how could the company engage with CROs and recruit clinicians as investigators for potential clinical trials? Maria had said that the competition is very fierce, and it is, regardless of what therapeutic area you're in now, as personalized medicine has had an impact on clinical trials, and the N numbers for those trials are really targeting smaller patient populations. So not only are you competing for patients, but you're competing for clinical investigators. Also, why would a key opinion leader provide advice to your company? They have a limited number of choices. What would make them pick you? Why should investors back your company? Why should the street cover your news? Why should a big pharma partner with you? If you're looking for a commercialization partner or someone to help your company in an acquisition, why would somebody do that with you? And what happens to the company If you do have a clinical failure along the way, how do you recover from that incident? How do you protect the value that you're building every day so that if you do have a clinical disappointment, it doesn't have a tremendous impact on you? Working to develop your corporate brand will help you to have a strategy in place that will help you address all of these things. And for companies without marketed products, it really will help you to evolve over time, and it's expected that this will happen. So you initially will start out with the belief in the value of your scientific platform. Usually when companies start, that's pretty much all they have, is a differentiating, hopefully scientific platform. And over time, that perception needs to shift to a company of value as a whole and of your ability to deliver on that promise and commercialize successfully. So corporate identity for an emerging company is expected to evolve, but it should build on the image that it is developing from day one. So you're not going to see a dramatic swing in image, but rather you're going to be seeing a strengthening of image from day one. So we don't know how many of you might be in Big Pharma attending this conference today, and if you are, welcome. But you might be sitting there thinking, well, you know, I'm in Big Pharma and I have marketed products and a pipeline and this really doesn't apply to me. Well, it actually does apply to you. When you have a number of products in a therapeutic area, and we've been using oncology as our example today, having a dedicated franchise around those products does boost the perception of the value of the products. We did a study, and this was also confirmed globally, but this is U.S. oncologists indicated to us in our study that the products in oncology portfolio would be seen as more valuable if the company had them in a dedicated franchise. 75% of oncologists have told us this. And why? Because it's actually showing a stronger level of commitment and thought leadership in a particular area such that the company has dedicated a franchise to it. And a company that wants to succeed and sustain a healthy long-term competitive advantage can do so even in the absence of a continuous introduction of new products by cultivating the identity. Now, we all know it takes many, many years to successfully bring a product to market, and the launch periods are often few and far between, so there's a long lag time between newness in the market. But during that period of time, you can still maintain your advantage and actually leapfrog over your competition if you're working on the other aspects of reputation that drive image. So you're probably thinking, well, okay, so far so good. How do I know if my corporate brand is doing well or not? And how valuable is it? We have a very quick quiz for you, and this is something you think about on your own. We often ask our clients these 5 questions. Go to your key executives in your company and ask them these questions. Who is our company? What does our company stand for? How is our company really different from our nearest competitors? Why are these differences important? And why should a stakeholder choose our company over all other options? Now, hopefully, your 10 key executives will answer those 5 questions in exactly the same way. If you do, you're on to a really good start. That shows you have clarity, consistency, and coherence in the internal interpretation of your corporate brand identity strategy. After you do that, now go on the outside and ask 10 stakeholders outside of your company the same 5 questions. Are you getting the same answers as your internal leaders? Ideally, the ideal state is that all 10 of your internal audiences should say the same thing in the same way, and your external stakeholders should also feel the same way. This is the perfect balance where your image matches your strategy. More often than not, that's not the case, and more often than not, you will often see dissonance even within the company, and at that point, you might want to consider looking a little deeper at the evolution of your corporate brand identity strategy and how well it's implemented in the company. So some key takeaways here. Corporate brand identity, as we said, is a strategic platform. You know, in our quiz, quite the majority of you did recognize that it was something other than a campaign and or a website. And it really is a strategy that's going to help you define your key important differentiators in the market, not just the products, but actually how you are and that secret sauce that makes you uniquely you. It will also help you successfully compete and deliberately plan these experiences of value that we've been talking about here. It is about value, and how do you deliver value every day to all of your stakeholder audiences, not just the shareholder, not just the analyst and investor community, but all of your stakeholders. It helps you drive your business in several key ways that we reviewed today. It is a major economic asset. If you think of it as a bank, every day you're investing in your corporate identity, and the return will go back into that bank, and it's going to help you not only build value, but also help you to manage when you have a crisis. It's going to drive product recommendations ultimately, and a product recommendation could be something, not necessarily buying your product because the product may not be marketed yet, but when I say recommendation, we're talking about, I want to be a clinical investigator of yours. I want to be a patient that enrolls in one of your programs, etc. And so I want to work for your company, spend my career there. These are all recommendation behaviors, and it's tied to the corporate identity. Again, creating differentiation and installation. And it's valuable to both emerging biopharmaceutical companies who have not yet launched their first product, and it's also highly relevant to big pharma who have launched products but want to figure out a way to not only maintain their competitive edge, but stay ahead for the years to come.
Thank you very much, guys. On behalf of Zintro and our over 180,000 members, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you very much, and if anyone in the Zintro audience has questions as this gets posted, my Zintro contact will be made available via my profile at Zintro. Thank you, Enrique.
And everyone, feel free to reach out to Camille directly by using the link you see on your screen or by searching for her username. This closes today's presentation. I wish you all a very nice day. Thank you for attending.
Thank you very much.